Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Futures, the podcast for B2B marketers sponsored by AdsAct, the B2B ad platform. Today we are asking one of the biggest questions facing marketing leaders. Is brand the last thing left? As AI takes over more of the execution, from targeting to the production and even channel optimization, what remains for marketers to own? In this episode, we'll explore how AI is changing creativity, strategy, and the human role in marketing. We'll discuss what happens when audiences discover and interact with brands through AI instead of ads or humans, and what skills will define successful marketers by 2030. But before we dive in, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourselves and share a bit about your current focus. Steph, would you like to give a sentence on yourself?
Sure, yes. I'm Steph O'Seal, and I lead a global analytics and activation team for the marketing department of Sage, which is a B2B software as a service company.
Thank you so much. Sam.
Yeah, I'm Sam Wolfile. I am the marketing operations manager for Tesa North America. So I oversee marketing operations for all of Tesa across US, Canada, and Mexico.
Awesome. Welcome. Jasmine.
Yeah, hi. I'm Yasmin. I'm a chief marketing officer at SpeakUp. So I'm also with my team very focused on adapting to the new world, implementing a lot of AI tools, and really curious about the conversation.
Awesome. And Marc.
Hi, I'm Marc Lewis. I run the School of Communication Arts. We work with a couple of dozen of the top agencies, preparing the next generation of creative talent.
Amazing. Welcome, everyone. Great introductions. Thank you all. Let's start with the big picture, okay? If AI can now do most of what marketers and agencies once did, what becomes the new source of competitive advantage?
So for me, there's two things now. What is a competitive advantage? The one big thing is speed to market, because I think with AI, everything is we can be more efficient, right? So we can do more, but we can also do things faster. But then it's the question, everyone will do things faster, right? So it's the speed in which we are going to market with new products and campaigning on them is very important, but also how original will it be? How creative will it be? And I think those are two factors which we really have to all the time keep in mind, and let's not go into traditional processes anymore, which we all learned before when we learned our marketing field, and we all learned how to execute a campaign. But we completely need to overthink that. And I think that's a challenge for everyone in the team, but also a really big responsibility for leadership. So I'm curious to hear what others think about it as well.
I feel there's something, I hear that, Yasmin. I feel there's something even more fundamental that is a unique advantage for us as humans when it comes to creativity and marketing. So I'll start off just with a very quick sort of an example story, I suppose, something that I threw on LinkedIn a few months ago, and I think it resonated. AI has never been a 17-year-old boy that got kicked out of its parents' house as a 17-year-old and finds itself living with its girlfriend in its girlfriend's parents' house until one night at 2:00 in the morning, it gets kicked out by its girlfriend, and now it's got no bed to sleep in. And it's sitting on a pavement outside a kebab shop thinking, what bed am I going to sleep in tonight? And it's looking at the queue in the kebab shop, and it sees all the girls and the boys that are queuing up, and it's thinking, I wonder if I could sleep in any of those beds tonight. So that might sound like a really weird example, and it might be an example of me oversharing a lived experience, but it's a lived experience. And from a lived experience as a creative, you could use that experience to write a joke, or write a poem, write a song, or maybe write an idea for an ad for a commercial. One of the things that AI will never have is lived experiences. It can only imagine other people's. Another thing that AI will never have is taste. So these are two things that creatives have that the machine will never have. It can try and mimic them, but it will never have lived experiences, and it will never have taste. And what's more, we can't teach either humans or machines how to have a lived experience or to have their own taste. We can only encourage and nurture. We can't teach. It's a really important point to make, I think, right at the start, because we need to remember all the way through this that we're humans connecting with humans, whether it's B2B or B2C. At the end of the day, we are trying to work out how to connect with people. And we know that the best way to connect with people is to make them feel something. People are more likely to change their point of view when it resonates, when they feel something. So in this new age that we're rushing towards, this post-AI world, let's remember what's most powerful and valuable about us when we're doing our work, which is that we're humans trying to connect with humans. And then finally, just to say that technology, the root of the word technology, its etymology, is simply the art of process. And somewhere in the middle of taste and lived experiences, there is process. And perhaps we can make processes more efficient and drive them forwards, but we shouldn't let go of all of the stuff that makes what we do human.
I really like that, but I have two questions. Like, don't you think like AI can make us feel something and can be empathic? Like, if I talk to ChatGPT or so, I find it quite yeah. Will it not make us feel something?
I think we want to feel something. Often when we're talking to AI, we start to give it a gender and maybe even we give it a name. We're hungry for feeling. We're hungry for emotion because that's what humans are. But we know when we're speaking to our AI that it's not human, that it's weird to give it gender and that sort of thing. And we also know that it hallucinates. And so we can't quite trust it, I feel. And I'm certain that it will get better and better, but it's never going to be like talking to our wife or our husband or our children or our parents or our boss or our best friends, the people that we really have true relationships with.
I do think there's probably one emotion that everyone feels occasionally when they're working with AI tools. And I like a lot of what you said there, Marc, and I'd like to come back to your point about process and technology, because that's what I think about every day in my job for we think about adopting AI tools. Thinking about emotion, I mean, we've all felt frustration too when we try and do something with it that we actually can't do yet, or we haven't prompted it correctly to do. And I'll share an embarrassing anecdote of just the other week using Excel and trying to not actually even process numbers, but to just separate out some text into different columns. And had this thought, actually I should just use Copilot to do this. I know the Excel formula for that, but just ask it. And I didn't prompt it correctly. And it said, here you go. And it did nothing, like absolutely nothing. And I went, no, you didn't. And so I'm typing back to the Copilot as if it's a human. It's like, you didn't do anything. And it said, yes, I did. Here it is. And it still did nothing. And then I was getting really angry. And I was like, no, you're lying to me. You didn't do it. And having this inane conversation with a non-human being and actually feeling a true emotion, which was frustration and anger. So I guess that doesn't really help us with marketing, sometimes doesn't, because we don't want necessarily frustration coming out of the things we create. But certainly because the emotion happens in the human, do you think it's possible, Marc, that it can create emotions, can drive humans to things?
So I'm thinking about stuff that the AI, Gen AI, for a moment, just focus on Gen AI. I'm thinking about work or content that Gen AI has produced, and I'm looking at it versus what humans produce. And no, I haven't seen demonstration of work yet, even technically very beautifully made work that's got the same humanity in it. And I'm sure it will come. We're experimenting with our students using their LoRa's to create like stand-up routines or different things that might make us laugh or shock, and they're demonstrating that as long as the human comes first, as long as it's the human that's writing the joke and filtering the joke and improving the joke, that's why when I was had a previous call up, maybe we'll come back to this, I was talking about the exoskeleton. As long as the human is driving the machine, then I think that there is a room for emotion. My problem is that when the human outsources to the machine and asks the machine to suggest output that might have an emotion in it, and the human doesn't switch on their creative mind, because it's the creative minds that can work out what levers to pull to make the human on the other end feel something. And as I said, unless we get somebody to feel something, they're not going to do something. We need to get people to feel in order to do.
To jump in here for a second, Marc, I think you're raising a good point. And for me, it's something that marketing always comes back to in the work that I do and have done in my careers. Marketing is about connection. What is that connection that you're making with your target market, who your audience is, whether it's B2B or direct to consumer, or you're selling a specific product that everyday people will use or whatever. And I think, focusing on that human aspect, that is something that's going to really set it apart. Back to the original question, Joaquin, was, what becomes the new source of competitive advantage. And I think it's the businesses and the organizations that will find a way to connect that human aspect to the AI aspect. Also, Yasmin, the part that you kind of brought into this too was the speed to market, right? That being a competitive advantage. And I think there's going to be parts of that. Those companies, those marketers that can utilize the human aspect that comes from them to put into AI to then get out the product that they want, to get it to market faster. So I think there's a combination there. There's kind of a happy medium that you're going to have to find. So it's not becoming something that's it's super fast, but it's overly robotic, and it's missing that human element, that connection element that's so important. But also you can't take as long with utilizing AI, resources and tools, because other businesses, other people, other marketers are going to beat you to market with that. So, I think that's really where the competitive advantage will lie, in those that, we see it every day. And when we try to use Copilot, or we try to use ChatGPT or Perplexity, or whatever AI platform you're using, you can become incredibly frustrated when you're not prompting it correctly, and it's giving you information or something back that you don't want, or not what you're looking for. And so those that find that happy medium, connect the human world with the speed and efficiency of the tool and AI, those will be the people that win. Those will be the businesses that win and see the most competitive advantage.
That's a great angle, Sam. And I would love to connect that with the second part of today's call about how brands are evolving, right? Because what happens when many brands are connecting human emotions with speed, and you go to market very quickly, and you're competing for attention, and also with the democratization of good quality image, for example. And so how does brand building change when people no longer discover companies through ads or social media, but through AI discovery? Or if they do it through ads, if all the ads look the same, and all the ads look amazing, and everyone can do and connect human with speed, how brands are evolving?
For me, there are actually two things around it, right? What is still the value of brands? Oh, so we are now all working in marketing, but so we are working since years. We are used to work with big brands for our tech, for our marketing tech and so on, right? But now they are all coming with AI solutions, right? And little AI native analytics tools here and there and blah. And they don't have a big brand or so, but if they work well, then people talk about it a lot and they use it. So then I feel like maybe the value of being a brand in this new world, which is so much faster, becomes less important than the value of really just having a very easy to use, amazing product. So then the value of brand is maybe getting a little bit less valuable, because I'm actually questioning every brand, whether they're still relevant.
Well, we need to think about why do we have brands? I think we have brands as a shortcut to work out what we trust.
Yeah. But
So
now
they're
what
kite marks to
is so
trust.
different. I don't trust big brands anymore, because I'm yeah, but can they actually keep up in B2B software? Can they keep up? Did they already overtake new processes? Is it not legacy already? So my understanding whom I can trust is completely different now.
I will jump in. I think brand actually will be more important when it comes to AI. Using LLMs, especially as organizations or people use AEO or GEO. They're using these AI platforms to ask questions directly to, instead of going and Googling something, or Bing searching, or DuckDuckGo, whatever search engine they use. The thing with these LLMs is they are learning from the brands and from the reputation that these companies have. And that's actually part of what's weighted in these answers. So they're not just giving you an answer that is generic, or they're just finding from this random company that has no awareness and profile and reputation in an industry or within what have you. And so, or within a market, etc. And so brand is actually becoming almost more important, because these AI tools crawl websites, they crawl everything, and it's so important to make sure that everything is connected and that there is a brand built, so that they weight those answers more heavily. And there's so much of this that as marketers, we still don't understand, and it's still being figured out and determined how exactly this information is weighted. And I've been on some webinars and some calls just kind of discussing this and going over this, and it's fascinating. They look for things like, FAQs on pages, how those brands are weighted against other brands across that specific market, how well the website is constructed, how useful is. All of these factors go into which answers they're putting forward to you first when you ask a question or a prompt within an AI platform. So when the brand is strong, when it's connected, then I think that actually has more of an impact on where you're ranking versus just saying that your web page is really well built for SEO or what have you. It's having a good ecosystem across the board that then elevates the organization and elevates the brand, which then ranks higher when you're getting an answer for AI.
I think you're both right. And I think it kind of depends on what you're looking for. So what Sam is saying is 100% what we're seeing as well. So basic rules of SEO still apply in a world where people look for answers in an LLM. You've got to have expertise and trust and some weight behind your digital presence for it to surface you. So that actually really hasn't changed very much. I think especially for consumer products, that's probably the case. Jasmine's saying is actually also my lived experience in that in my role where I'm managing a MarTech team, I've never had so many requests from my marketing team of, can we try this tool? Or I've found this little thing. And the places that they're finding these very point solution pieces of technology to use in their jobs as B2B marketers are maybe a little bit different than where they used to. There's more community forum discussions, there's more networking, things they pick up at events. So it's also potentially for B2B a moment for challenger brands to really break through. Marketers, maybe other types of B2B buyers are a little bit more open-minded for all the reasons that you were saying, Jasmine, that you do kind of wonder if a big incumbent player is as nimble or as innovative. So I think, it maybe depends a little bit on what the topic is. I think you're all right.
I hear all that, and I think it's fascinating. Just there's something else that I'm hearing in my head as I'm hearing these arguments. Do you remember that ad, "No one ever got fired for buying an IBM"? Do you remember that ad? There's a book that I hold as sort of my Bible, if you like. It's Future Shock by the Tofflers, it says by Alvin Toffler, but it's by the Tofflers. And they talk about the speed of change getting faster. And we can really see it, can't we, that we're living in such a fast-changing world now where all this innovation is rushing past at thousands of miles an hour. And when that's happening, when there's so much change and so much innovation, I think what I feel is what people often look for is for things where they can to stay the same. People are looking for some level of stability and trust in a fast-changing world. So I think Yasmin is absolutely right and Steph, you're right as well to say that you can see it in your lived experiences, that this is something that's happening at the moment. But I wonder if this is a moment until some of the bigger legacy brands are able to work out how to be as agile or how to go out and acquire. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, people buy brands that they trust. And they're looking for, as I say, no one ever got fired for buying an IBM. They're looking for that security blanket when they're choosing who to partner with.
Yeah, I'd like to link that concept of how big brands are responding to the disruption of new technologies. And that's actually the concept of disruptive innovations. And there is a concept in technology adoption that no matter what you do, you will be disrupted by new technologies. And this happened before with Oracle and when HubSpot entered, for example. And HubSpot became the market leader for CRMs. And of course, you could think HubSpot will be there forever. They have an amazing brand. They created amazing content and everything. Probably all here will learn at some point from HubSpot Academy. But they are being disrupted because there's no way to escape that. It will come someone with a cheaper solution, a more focused solution, and doing it better and faster. And there is no way to escape that. The thing is, should we invest in brand anyway, or should we focus on just more tailored solutions that solve specific problems?
That's the key, solving problems, isn't it? I was watching an interview with Marc yesterday, and he's on the US version of Dragon's Den, and he said something really insightful. He's got all these products that he's invested in, and all of them hate retailing on Amazon. They all hate retailing on Amazon for so many reasons, and we can all imagine what those reasons are. But Amazon has invested so much in their logistics, so that you can order something at 4 in the afternoon and it's going to arrive at your door at 9 in the morning, and you feel dirty and guilty for buying on Amazon, maybe, but you do it because it's so blooming convenient. But it's easy to imagine how AI is going to allow these small independent manufacturers to aggregate so that they can put their parcel on the next DHL or FedEx van that's going past. And we can see how AI is going to allow is going to allow a challenge to large brands like Amazon, but only because it's solving a problem that all these organizations that hate Amazon with a passion are waiting for AI to solve. So for me, and I talk back to the definition of creativity, for me, the definition of creativity is the expression of original ideas that provide value. And as long as we're using AI to provide value, in this instance, by solving a pain point from brands, then it's right. And then the large brand is, as you say, a bit like Oracle and others. It's waiting to be killed by better innovation. So that's a good example of it, I
And
think.
I think only so there's like also like as companies like on the marketing, we have to question us: is what we are like now saying or releasing, is it like a little feature just to stay on top of our customers or so, or is it true innovation? Because I always think about like this BlackBerry versus iPhone story, right? Like BlackBerry had a strong brand and they kept on releasing new BlackBerry versions. But they didn't, and they thought that they're innovating, but they didn't. So and then Apple released the iPhone, and it was basically done. So and that's also like how I see sometimes like big legacy brands. They're doing stuff all the time, but are they like rethinking what they do? And that's, I think, the same for us in marketing, right? In our discipline. Like we are like doing stuff all the time, but are we doing like sometimes like, we with AI and everything goes so fast, we have to like make sure that like at least like once, twice a year, we have to do a really big thing, like a really big bang, which is changing actually everything we did before.
I love that you said that, Yasmin. When people think about the 4 Ps of marketing, almost always they really spend their time thinking about promotion, but they don't spend their time thinking about product. And obviously product is so important. And I love what you're saying there, because for me, what I loved about when the iPhone came out was it about 15 or so years ago now, they absolutely rethought what phones look like with their app store, and it was revolutionary. And we think about it now, and it seems so obvious, but it was revolutionary. And BlackBerry weren't thinking that way, and so they were blindsided.
Yeah, so I want to translate this to marketing, right? So that like sometimes the things we are doing, they also need to be revolutionary. We can't keep on doing the same stuff over and over again. We need to, this webinars or this they were great last year, so let's do them all again this year, blah. I think that's like not enough anymore, because all of us in our companies where we work for will get a lot of competition now all the time because the world moves faster. So we have to think more bigger picture. Okay, what is it what we actually want to do? How do we completely reinvent ourselves like every year, right? And therefore, yes, of course, building a brand was always super important. But I think it will become less important, and it will become way more important to talk about what you actually do. And that already for me starts with the website, right? If you think about your website, it was like a brand team would say, yeah, okay, the website is also about showcasing our brand, but not so much anymore, because right now I would say the website is for large language models to read so that we rank on ChatGPT and Perplexity and all of that. So basically, should it still be like a place where we show our brand, or should it just be like a huge library just for large language models to read?
It comes back to really understanding what the customer journey is now and how much that's
Yeah.
changed. So in some ways, it's like going back to the fundamentals of marketing, which is know your market, know your customer. And I love what you said, Marc, about the 4 Ps. We were talking about that actually recently in my management team, that actually maybe we can let go of the focus on promotion for a little bit. We want to get closer to product. We want to see more of what the features are, figure out how that sits with our customers, and then really rethink what the proposition is. And that's really exciting. It's like getting back to the basics, but in a totally different way.
Yeah, but being close to the product is tricky. Just think about, for example, ChatGPT and Claude. Many people said Claude is the best LLM that there is out there. However, the market share of cloud comparing with ChatGPT is minimum, right? So maybe they have the best product. Maybe they are solving like very, very well those challenges. I don't know. But for some reason, ChatGPT is winning. And so I don't know. We need to think about the full marketing mix, I
Are you
believe.
suggesting that's a marketing win for ChatGPT?
I
But
don't
also
know.
that's interesting. So how do they win, right? I feel like marketers should also like look in way more into data, right? So they made their product like at the beginning, I think very cheap, right? To just get market like dominance, to just like get market share, get market share, get market share. So that's it. That's the thing. When we are then like as marketeers, for example, go into new markets and so on, right? Of course, it's super important to build a brand and to be speedy, but then maybe it's also just, following this kind of things. How can I just be everywhere? I think that's getting now way more important.
I'm not sure about everywhere, but I'm certain that what we need to be is everywhere inside someone's head. What we
Yeah.
need always, I mean, it's always been true, is we need mental availability. So that's the game. Is so when somebody thinks about a chocolate bar, they should think about your brand. Or when they think about an insurance product, they should think about your brand. In the same way, when they think about LLMs, they should think about your brand. And what Sam Altman has been really good at, really, really good at, is owning mental availability. And so he's doing this in a quite a Trumpian way. If you think about it, it's OpenAI that gets in the news. It's not cloud that gets in the news. And there are moments where I'm almost certain that they've deliberately done things to sort of poke the bear, if you like, to be spoken about. And it creates mental availability. And that for me is a great example of really clever marketing done by the OpenAI crew and not done by the crew at cloud. Is how do we make sure that we own mental availability so the next time you reach for a chocolate bar or an insurance brand, or this instance an LLM, the first thing that you think of is our brand. And if that's the first thing you think of, I promise you, you're not going to go to the second or the third or the fourth, because humans are lazy and they'll go to the first thing they think about.
No disagreement.
However, I think with AI now and all like as in our jobs as a marketeer, we are not going anymore to the first thing we think about. We shouldn't because it might be just legacy, right? So this is where I think like overall coming back off the topic of tournament, this is where I do think like brand becomes less important and your value becomes way more important. If you think about Salesforce, do you still think, oh, wow, that's premium, that's top of market, they're innovating? I'm not sure anymore.
I think that if you don't know much about Salesforce and your LLM is recommending you 5 companies that can all provide the service, and one of those is Salesforce, and you've recognized that name because you read it in Business
Yeah,
Week or Fast Company or whatever a couple of years ago,
yeah.
and then 3 of the companies have only been around for 6 months and you're not quite sure about them, then yes, I think that you'll take a closer look at Salesforce because it's got some mental availability.
Yeah, maybe that's the first instinct. But then, yeah, I would maybe challenge the person in my team who comes to me, like with this kind of, yeah, but they're established in the market. Maybe we should go with them. I would really challenge it.
Maybe one thing I'd be interested to hear, and maybe it's from Sam, because I think your role is maybe quite similar to mine. Actually, we want to do things using, say, customer data or just some of the internal processes that we have to do as marketers, and we have internal tools for. There's definitely an under the table ChatGPT movement going on in my office where people are maybe using tools that are not on our full IT stack, and they're doing things because it makes their lives easier. And we've had this conversation about like the internal culture and how do we facilitate marketers being innovative and trying new tools and building up the idea of what they want to do with some of these AI tools internally. And the fact that there's a certain process you need to go through to get things approved through a legal department, through IT, there's data governance, there's all this process, which is slow and should be slow, actually. You want your legal team to properly review something. Nobody wants a data incident, right? So we're talking a lot about this tension right now between doing things fast and trying, so making sure we're following the processes that we need to follow as a publicly traded company too. I don't know how you guys are thinking about cracking that. I think we're trying lots of things. Some successful, some not.
For me, what you just said, Steph, is a big challenge. So I'm working like at SpeakUp, right, which is a compliance and ethics platform. So we are super, super secure. The safety like of our data and from our customers is for us like our number one priority. So to try all the time new like tooling and new tech and let's try this and then like, you know, hop off the next one is really, really difficult, like process wise. It's a real challenge, which is for me also like really like sometimes hard to accept, right? Because we are still like we are scale up. So I want things to go very fast. But to your point, on the other hand, also not, because you also need to be safe because the risks are too high to take. So I really feel I have the same challenge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
I
the
don't
value
think.
of
Go ahead.
a brand gives you that trust, right? Because
Exactly.
you know that behind that brand there are values.
I don't think it's an easy answer for speed for these tools because, yeah, we all deal with, the having to follow those processes and those procedures to then be able to utilize a tool maybe to its full extent or to the extent that we want to be able to use it. And so it's maybe, can we test it in a more generic way to see kind of how it operates and the feedback it gives us and what it produces versus maybe diving fully in with what we ultimately want it to be or hope it will be. To kind of, I guess, bridge the gap between speed and process and speed and procedure. So that way, if and or when you get it approved and you can jump into it, you kind of already have a base level of understanding of what it will do. Or maybe you find early on, but this actually isn't going to work for what we're hoping it's going to work for. So never mind, scrap it, and we're going to go down a different avenue. But yeah, it's still not an easy answer. It's not a black and white answer. It's very much a gray area, I think. I think, finding that exact same thing, right? It's especially depending on the size of your organization and the governance that's in place and the procedures that are in place, that it can take a while. It can grind slowly. And so how do you, I don't want to say work around that, but how do you play within that to figure out maybe this tool is something that we can use or we should use without fully diving in?
Maybe I think like what I find like a little bit a solution for me is like social proof becomes for me now way more important than it ever was before. So I really want to like with all this like new landscape changing and what kind of data to use, what kind of tools to use, blah blah blah. It's for me way more important to connect with peers and ask them, hey, does that actually work? And then they would say, yeah, okay, or like this new HubSpot AI feature, it actually works, so it's good that you purchase it. Or this like little analytics tool, it actually works. And then I look into it, because the problem or the challenge is also that with AI, everyone is like promising everything, right? And like really miracles. But then of course, there's also a lot of like disappointment attached to it, right? Yeah, okay, but actually it cannot do that thing right now what I'm looking for. So I'm trying to like stay way more close to people and listen to like everything needs social proof, basically for me at the moment, because I can't really trust, like to the topic back, I can't trust brands anymore. I can't stay on top of all those new things. So what's left? Like, okay, to ask others.
I hear you say that, and it reminds me so much of what the world of the internet looked like in the very early days after Netscape IPO. So I'm thinking sort of 95 to sort of 97, 98, maybe a little bit later than that, where there were so many people with so many sorts of plugins and different ways of doing things, and so many people had business plans that they were going to check, and you didn't know which one to back. And there was like a period of everybody would just stick a .com after their name and they had sort of had something. And it took a little while for things to settle down. And
I think that's called a bubble popping.
exactly.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah. And what I want to say is we're going through a similar cycle now. So what we're experiencing now, we can look at, our history can tell us this, that we're experiencing another bubble. And people are already talking about it. You only need to look at the way that money is changing hands between the big players. It's a bubble in a bubble, with lots of people trying to take their cream off the top of that bubble pile. But it will end up popping. because bubbles do, and out of that will emerge the right people to trust. They'll have the right capitalization, they'll have the right teams, they'll have the right distribution, and all of that will help them lead towards the right product. And they will either build a brand or they'll be acquired by brand. We've seen this dance so many times now, whether it's the invention of radio or TV or internet or mobile or social and so forth. This is another bubble. It's a bigger, more exciting technology, in my view, than previous cycles. It's got lots of things that really excites me. But this is in the philosophy, the idea of what's happening at the moment. For me, at least, is no different to 1995 to what, if we're going to say, the bubble pop, March 2000, May 2000 experience, and all of the innovation that came from that, and then all of the disappointment and pain that came from that, and then all of the newfound opportunity and energy that came once people sort of got better, dusted off their wounds and licked, and got better. And on the other side, we knew who to do business with. We knew that Excite or Lycos were not the people to do business with, for example. Do you remember Lycos? But Google were the people to do business with.
Yeah, and I like the comparison because both of periods of history came with amazing technologies, whatever if they are bubbles and if the big players are moving money from one pocket to another pocket, they are still, they have amazing use cases. We are using it every day. Well, I want to say thank you. It's been an amazing conversation. I think something that is clear to me is that the brand is not just a logo or an ad, is what people think and feel about you. It comes with your purpose, your values, your story, how you act every day. And AI can definitely help the work around that, whatever if it's messaging, visuals, media buys. But the heart of brand is human. It needs judgment, empathy, creativity, and AI can make brand building faster and clearer, but it can't replace the people who give a brand a meaning. And I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you so much for everyone listening. I hope if you enjoy this discussion, please subscribe and share this episode with your network. And until next time, thank you so much.